Welcome back to the Multiverse Infinitum podcast, where today I am your host, Lee Fox, and I am joined with
Hey, I'm Gareth Bond. We are here to talk about cryptids. I don't know very much, but I think Spencer is gonna help me understand them.
precisely, and as well as the study of the cryptids, which is cryptozoology. Um, Give a quick definition for that at the top of the hour. Cryptozoology is a pseudoscience or subculture that searches for and studies unknown, legendary, and distinct um, species whose present existence is disputed or unsubstantiated, particularly those popular in folklore, such as, and we'll go over these, Bigfoot, Loch Ness, Yeti, Chupacabra, Jersey Devil, and Mokele Mbe. Umbembe. I don't know how to say that. But we'll start off with probably the most common, and what a lot of when I was doing my research, it popped up saying the grandfather of cryptozoology, or yeah, that's just what the thing was, Bigfoot.
Bigfoot?
And
Bigfoot is
something,
the grandfather, eh?
yeah. So also commonly referred to as Sasquatch. It's a large, hairy, human-like mythical creature alleged to inhabit some of the forests in North America. But the interesting thing about it is there's a lot of anthropological evidence to say that we did have a deviation spirit. There was a deviant species after Australopithecus in our human evolution, and they would be more forest-dwelling folk. But that's not all. Sasquatch, in particular, has been found not only in North America, but in parts of South America, and then also across the world, in, in Nepal specifically, but in other southern regions of China, they have the myth of the Yeti as well, which is a mountain dwelling human ape hybrid.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's the most plausible if we're going to keep a scientific viewpoint. But what's your view? What's your stance on Bigfoot?
On Bigfoot, personally, I've never believed in Bigfoot.
I believe.
I think I think humans get around really, really well. And I think
Mm,
part of the one of the things that I appreciate about these stories and superstitions is that there's like they're in their name, there's a very cryptic sense. There's this idea that something could be out there lurking that's unknown. And it's a very romantic kind of idea. And I think kind of that romanticism plays a large role in our beliefs of
yeah.
these things. And so, not to say that I don't really appreciate these stories, but I personally just don't believe in them, especially just because there's very little signs of like scat found by Bigfoot. There's been a few like claims of that, but it usually comes back as like bears or something,
Yeah.
and there's like no impact. So it's difficult to believe in something when there's just so little evidence.
And we'll
Um,
increase in evidence on this list, but I do agree with Bigfoot. Even the found footage is often like, well, that's a guy in a suit or something like
Yeah,
that.
and especially as you mentioned Nessie on your list, I think there was like I think the original photograph of Nessie in Loch Ness was like ended up being staged, didn't it? It was found out, or the people that staged that photo eventually came forward and said
The second photo.
the second photo.
So the
Okay,
first photo, and then the second photo, they try to do it again, and they're all, no, you're just recreating what is already a phenomenon. It'd be like if Bigfoot really showed up, and then some guy in a suit was like, I'm Bigfoot, and then they pull the mask off, and they're all, there never was a Bigfoot. No, no. You know what I mean?
I see, I
Kind of
see.
a switcheroo. But since we're going on to that, Nessie is often described as a large, long necked, and with one or more humps protruding from the water. Its popular interest and belief is that the culture varied since, or in the culture has varied since it was brought to worldwide attention in 1933. So that's also pretty old to have different stories and like um, variations of the story because it's an actual real world location that you can go to and like have your own like, oh, I saw something in the water.
Okay,
And evidence of its existence is anecdotal with a number of disputed photographs and sonar readings. So that's another thing is they try to do the sonar, but at its face, it really just looks like a stegosaurus with fins, or what are those called?
oh, I don't know. We know those large aquatic animals. I think there's also a lot of evidence to show that those were like sea dwelling. I'm not sure if they lived in
Mm.
fresh water or not. Not that they couldn't change. I do have to say I love the idea of there being like a dinosaur left over into this random lake. That is so.
In Scotland,
It's so cool. Yeah.
right? And what do they feed it? Children.
Or whatever you feed a giant dinosaur. What would you feed Nessie? If you could feed anyone or anything to a
Bird,
dinosaur.
eggs, ostrich eggs all day. I would have an ostrich omelet tomorrow.
You don't think you'd feed your boss to it? I might feed my boss to it.
I'm not as tied up with that. So, anyway, Jersey Devil. This is more regional. Jersey Devil is a creature that is often described with flying as a flying biped with hooves, but there are many variations. It's also found only in the like mountainous regions of New Jersey.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's to the point where their hockey team is called Jersey Devils.
Jersey Devils? Okay.
That's like what they're known for, like the Jersey Devil. Some say it's a blue devil. I don't know.
What does it look like though?
It's a biped, so biped with hooves, but there are many variations. So
This is the Chupacabra?
no, the Jersey Devil.
Jersey
Chupacabra's
Devil.
next.
Okay.
So yeah, so I guess moving more south, we'll go Chupacabra. It's actually like a Latin word for like vampire or vampiric animal, and the name comes from the animal's reported vampirism. And the chupacabra is said to attack and drink the blood of livestock, including goats. So there's also some like satanic stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting, and also like super popular south of the border. Like to us, we're like, oh yeah, chupacabra, that's cool, but it's like it's more superstitious and more like
Believed?
believed. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, in Mexico and Guatemala and stuff.
Yeah, that's is the Skinwalker on your list?
It's next.
It's next. Okay, that's something I've been a lot of being from New Mexico. A lot of people believe in Skinwalkers. You know,
Mm.
you're not supposed to go into the desert after dark, and a whole bunch of other things. And as an avid rock climber and kind of general hiker and camper, I've gone a lot into the New Mexico wilderness and just never seen a sign. So I don't know,
Right.
but I don't know.
You think you don't know?
I think what I've already said, I suppose, which is that the mysticism of these things gets spread a lot because they sound so kind of romantic and kind of like spiritual.
Yeah.
Um, and then when you have something like a wolf attack or a coyote attack or something happens to your livestock, it's easy to blame on the
Something.
chupacabra.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it was in the dark in the
and it's in the
night.
dark and it sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
And it's also something about the darkness, when you hear certain sounds, they can be interpreted in a lot of different ways,
Totally. Like a
And so,
screaming child or something.
exactly.
Yeah, so a skinwalker, in particular the Navajo tribe, especially believed that the skinwalkers were shapeshifters who could assume the form of any animal, which allowed them to travel quickly and give them the ability to hide in plain sight. So maybe you could even say, oh, it was a coyote, but it wasn't a regular coyote.
It was the Skinwalker.
Right,
Okay, I
right.
see how that adds to the
And
legend.
and especially if you understand more of the background of the like Native American, but in particular these southern, southwestern native tribes and their spirituality, everything. An owl was a wise, scholar, and these symbols were really had stories and powers behind them. And what stays around usually is the scariest and weirdest and most superstitious.
That's true, and I
So
think
we
part of
could
it is the fear that if you're not aware of these creatures, they could possibly get you.
and
And I
suck your
think,
blood.
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
You know,
right.
that's
Exactly.
really interesting for sure, for sure.
So the next one has got a lot more popularity recently, mainly because Fallout 76 is set in West Virginia, but this is another regional one in West Virginia. So Mothman, in the West Virginian folklore, the Mothman is a humanoid creature reportedly seen at Point Pleasant area from November 15th, 1966 to December 15th, 1967. And there's a whole bunch of reports and books and like sightings and stuff, but it's only from that time period and then it kind of died off. And then there was one movie in like 2003, I think, with what's his name, Richard Gere, who I do not think put a hamster up his ass, but I think that was a rumor that was spread nationwide. Very interesting.
Never heard it.
Really?
Never heard it.
Okay, well, that's something to delve into. That's for the uh, S class audience who will understand the higher level thinking of this pod. However, Mothman, super cool. He's just a big old moth with big glowing eyes, and he's like, "Woo!" And the original title of the news article is "Couple Sees Man-Sized Moth," and then from there, a legend and sightings and maybe clippings and I found a fur, and they're like, because nothing was really happening,
Wow.
so it added to the superstition.
All right, Mothman.
And to this day, yeah, in West Virginia, they're like, oh yeah, for sure, he's hanging out in these trees somewhere.
Is it only one Mothman, or is it a whole species?
That's interesting. I believe it is one creature, just like all these.
Okay.
Like Nessie's a thing, Bigfoot's a thing.
Bigfoot was the same thing. That was a breed of apes, not just an
That's more
individual.
the Sasquatch route,
Okay.
but Bigfoot was
How
like
old
the
is it at
guy.
this point?
Bigfoot?
Yeah. You said it was the grandfather.
I should have looked that up, huh? I had dates for everything else. Quick, I know it's fairly old, but I wonder if Sasquatch and Bigfoot are separate. I mean, shoot, even Avalanche, here in Colorado, they have a big like Bigfoot imprint, um, as their logo. History. Here we go. Well, I'm gonna have to ask it directly. So I'm just calling it Bigfoot because if we get into the Yeti stuff, that's gonna go way, way further
I see.
back. But Bigfoot, like as an entity. All right, I know. Well, there's just a lot of it's become like a mythical figure at this point. It's like saying how old is Bigfoot? Like not how long ago, but a small news item in 1958 led to the modern version of mystical wild man Bigfoot.
Okay, so 1958 to present.
Yes,
So he'd be about 60 years old
if he was one.
if he was one.
Maybe Bigfoot.
Yeah, is Bigfoot immortal then? Is that the legend of the Bigfoot?
I don't know.
The legendary
Maybe he's just
Pokemon no one's seen?
a large enough predator
Is he a
that like
Pokemon?
can feed on like I don't think so. I wouldn't catch him.
You wouldn't catch him.
Even in Canada.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You wouldn't catch him in Canada?
No, I'm saying in Canada they have him like as a legend. And like they
Oh,
believe
okay,
in
yeah.
Sasquatch and but they call him Sam
Sam Scratch?
Squanch. No. One guy said that in Trailer Park Boys. But they do believe.
Okay, okay.
Okay, and then here we go. The final one. This is like across the ocean in Africa. So Mokele Mbembe is a mythical water dwelling entity that supposedly lives in the Congo River basin. Sometimes described as a living creature, sometimes described as a spirit. The descriptions vary widely among those who claim to have seen the creature, but it is often described as a large quadrupedal herbivore with smooth skin, a long neck, and a single tooth or horn.
Hmm. That's
So
pretty
kind
cool.
of Stegosaurus style as well.
I think a lot of these things have a real spiritual aspect to them,
Right.
in some sort, and I think that's what makes them so appealing.
Totally.
The idea that something is out there ununderstood. And maybe if
And
it's
there's a
not
little bit
always
of a
something,
veil
yeah, and there's not always
creeping through.
necessarily, at least on this one, there's not always like a physical form behind that.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's what gives a lot of the mysticism and that feeling like it could be true.
Like you hear something in the woods and you're like, Bigfoot. But
Yeah,
there's nothing like really there, or it could be something
exactly.
else, but it's the idea of the spirit.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
idea of spirits in the woods.
Yeah, dude. I mean,
Could they be spirits?
if a tree falls,
If a tree falls.
I don't know. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. There's some honorable mentions that we can like go over, but I don't think they necessarily fall squarely into cryptozoology. Just maybe more like
So what about
fun.
ghosts? Are ghosts? I guess that's not really
That's
zoology.
paranormal
Yeah,
or
that's paranormal.
supernatural.
Okay.
Which we could do a whole nother supernatural thing, but that's a totally different discussion. And my dad wants to be a part of that because
All right. All right.
he has a lot of like
Sounds like a
experience
good
in this
time
stuff.
for next time, eh?
So, anyways, unicorns, honorable mention,
Honorable
mermaids,
mention.
mermaids,
Dragons or ancient dragons, more accurately. I've heard.
cyclops. Let's go into dragons then.
All right. I've just heard that like people are like think dragons, or some sects of people think dragons could have lived because there's fossil evidence of, giant winged lizards.
And their bones could have been hollow.
Yeah, and there somehow someone argued that they could have possibly breathed fire too. I don't remember. I don't remember.
Like,
But honorable mention: dragons,
oh yeah,
extinct dragons.
I think that's
The
cool
age of
too
magic
because
is dead.
since we're talking about the spirituality, maybe there was a physical dragon, but even if it wasn't, the what it symbolized and what they had is the same thing. Like what werewolves and vampires, like we have these symbols that we're like we must
Yeah,
defend ourselves against these, Saint.
that's
Saint
what I
Peter,
think is
I
coolest
believe.
about these stories.
Mm-hmm. Saint Christopher, I think.
Yeah. And on the other hand, we have these myths like the giant squid and the kraken.
Oh, that's not a myth.
Yeah, well, we found the giant squid. So there are like these giant. There was at least one point a
Except
giant
for when
creature
Zeus said it.
that no one knew about,
When Zeus
even if it
said
didn't attack ships.
it did.
No, what they do is when they come to the surface, they're pretty much sick or dying, and they get exhausted, and so they try to grapple onto things that they find in order to save energy from swimming.
So we're like, he's taking over, and he's like,
Yeah, and it's literally a dying giant squid,
I've
just
always
on his last
felt for
leg.
him, dude. I've always felt for him, but I didn't know that there was no malicious intent.
Yeah. So they just like come up and like try to grapple ships, and it's
Well, what
like
if
giant
and
tentacles.
it crushes everything?
No, they're not that strong.
Oh, that's part of the myth.
Yeah, that's definitely part of the myth.
What about Moby Dick,
The white whale?
Captain Ahab?
I don't know. Probably not. I think it's generally considered a piece of fiction.
Really?
As far as I know.
It could be real though. Big ass sperm whale.
Oh yeah. Albino sperm whale?
Right.
Bloodthirsty.
Could happen.
Could. Can't say it can't. And that's how we got to cryptozoology.
So if you enjoyed that and you would like to join us on for the journey and just keep clicking with us, click the like button, subscribe, click the bell notification so you don't miss any uploads. Thank you for the support on the pod as well as on the shorts, and we'll just keep it rolling. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.